How's it going, everybody? Bama Tony 73. Who in the blue blazes is doing the painting on Mattel's action figures? It's going to be the topic of today's video. And this is not a rant. This is going to be an adult discussion about toys. That's what it's going to be. This is not a rant. I'm not going to be on here cussing up a storm or anything like that. So we're just going to discuss intelligently the exact issues we're having with these figures and the money that we're shelling out on them, for them just not to be the way that we expect them to be. Subpar at best. And if you're talking Hasbro, Mattel, Kenner, that's top quality, top tier, right? And that's what we expect when we're paying $20-something a figure, okay? So, first of all, I hope all of you's had a good weekend. If you haven't, I hope your upcoming week is amazing to make up for it. I truly do. So let's dive right into this. First, today we're going to be discussing terrible paint applications. And what I mean by that is just not enough paint layers applied properly to cover the figure. The paint is too faint, I like to say as a painter. Needs another coat. But now on my business card, as I've been in construction for over 20 years, nowhere on my business card does it say I paint action figures. I do residential and commercial painting on homes, okay? Not cars or action figures, but homes, okay? I do carpentry, I do sheetrock, decks, whatever needs to be done, chimney sweeping, air duct cleaning, all that kind of stuff. But today we're going to talk about paint applications. That's going to be the first topic. And we're going to go over that, and we're going to talk about paint slop. And what that means exactly is paint being in areas that it shouldn't be applied in. That's just a clear indication of the product being rushed. It's just simply the quality's not there, okay? It's just, paint. Let's talk about that for a minute, because you don't even have to be in construction to know that paint is the last thing that is done to a car, a house, action figures, skateboards, motorcycles, bicycles, whatever you're discussing. Paint is the aesthetics. It's the final aesthetics of the product and how it's going to look. Nobody's going to walk in a house and pull their wallet out and buy that house and it ain't been painted yet. They're going to be like, where's the painter? And if you have a car that's got some paint issues, we can take it back to the dealer and they'll deal with it. Just like the builder will call the painter if there's an issue with the house. When you've got issues where paint slop, as I'm discussing, it's going to be all over the baseboard and it shouldn't be there. That's just another example of paint slop, okay? And we've got a lot of that going on with Fang Man here. So let's look at Fang Man here. Now, I didn't have my glasses on when I done this video, but look in his mouth. There's not enough paint applied in his mouth. You see that? Should be red. Should be red paint all in his mouth. You see that? Where they tried to do a good job over here on the right side, or his left actually, but my left is not even any paint there. And as you see up here on the collar, you have all kind of paint slop going on from the orange paint getting on the red. Back here, you've got where it should be painted. This should be painted orange all through here. You just don't have that. Over here is another example of the paint slop everywhere. And you see the paint drops right there? Just terrible. It looks bad. The eyes were done really good, but you see those red drips. That's not a top tier figure. Look at that quality of the collar. And look right here on his chest where it's supposed to be yellow all the way up here and meet perfectly. It's just not enough paint applied there, and it can be done. You see these straight, pretty lines here. Should have come up around the collar the same way, and it just wasn't done. And look at the brace, the arm bracers here, the paint slop all over the blue arm there. You have it over here as well. And that's just the way it is with him, and that's the way he is. And that's just an example of what I'm talking about. The product is not top tier. That's subpar at best. It was rushed. The quality is just not there. And the quality of the paint, that's the last thing a person sees when they buy something, is the paint. So we got to have that looking right. Look at Grizzlord's vibrant red bat and the boots, how vibrant red. It looks just like Hordak's red, vibrant, sculpted out bat. That's because I painted that, not Mattel. I did this. If you have a steady hand, you can do your Grizzlord the same way. But if it's a sculpted out bat, then it needs to be gloss red. As a collector, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so we don't want it to look like Montana. See, his is painted on, so you can understand it being painted like this. It's not a sculpt, it's just painted on. So that's okay and it's acceptable. But if it's a sculpt, as this is, it needs to be painted gloss bright red is what that needs to be. And I like him a lot better now. It looks way better. Now with Orko, we don't have many issues going on with this Orko. He is scaled properly. He looks really good. It needed a little more paint added behind the ear, because you can tell if you look real close, there's just not enough. It's just a thin layer of the blue paint where, like on his hands, it's applied properly. But everywhere else on this figure, it's absolutely amazing. So they done a really wonderful job with this Orko. And I will give him a 9 out of 10 as far as paint apps. And sculpt and scale. He's a 10 out of 10 as far as scale, but his stand is a little short, because when Orko flies by in the cartoon, he's a little bit taller or head high with the figures when he flies by. So the stand should have been about an inch taller, and he would have been, but as far as Orko goes, he's scaled properly. Okay, so we'll talk about the female figures. Okay, they're not scaled properly. We know that, and that's something that you just can't come to work the next morning and fix. The mold's been fixed, the mold's been done, the figures have been released, and they're just scaled that way. And they're underscaled. And I know what they were trying to do. Well, we'll just scale them after the vintage and the origins, and that's what we'll do. And this cartoon line being new, that's what they shouldn't have done. So, she should have been head high with Hordak. You see the difference in height here. Okay. She should have been about that tall. But I love my cartoon figures. I love them. But the female figures are just not scaled properly. They needed to be scaled a little taller. And that's what they should have been. And as far as her cat, it is a baby cat. The cat should have come up to her, around her thigh area. So this cat should have been 2 3/4 of an inch to be scaled properly. And I will take that scale over the articulation. So, I played with Battle Cat and Panther for many hours. All of us did back when we were kids, and they wasn't articulated. Played for hours with those toys. And you could drop them on the floor a bazillion times before they finally nicked up. So, it took 10 years for some of those things to become banged up. But this is just very underscaled, and it should have been scaled to 2 3/4 of an inch. And then we'll talk about Tila back here. We have Miss Tila here today with us for a reason. And that reason being, okay, so if you're going to give us weapons, make sure they can hold the weapons, because with her, you can just blow on it and it's going to fall right out of her hand every time. Her paint apps look really good. I don't have any problems with that. She looks good. So I guess the new painter that they've hired after these waves, that's who's giving us Fang Man and the cloudy looking horde bats on Grizzlor, right? But yeah, you just saw I put that in her hand. It fell right out again. There it went again. It's just you can't hold it. Yeah, you can probably fix it by heating her hand up and closing her hand up a little bit, but she just simply will not hold this thing at all. And I'm giving up. All right, so, and with Leech, we'll get back to the paint with him. His paint looks amazing. But right there on his neck, where it's green, all that should have been the same color as his face and legs. It should have been this color green, all in here, just as the animated cartoon is. So if that's what we're mimicking, that's what it should be. It's not being thought out properly. But other than that, everything looks good in his mouth. His eyes look really good. So the paint applications on this Leech is absolutely amazing. They look really good. But it's just not enough paint because all of this was left out in here. And but you can put his head down and you're good to go without that. But I'm just being picky here today. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. But with the Fang Man, I just can't get over how nice it looks through here. But when you get up in here, you start seeing all this paint slop and not enough paint added, paint slop on the arm bracers, and all the paint slop over here on his jaw. And these are, you can fix this. There's a solution to it. Just don't buy it. But I love Masters of the Universe, just like all of you do. And we're going to buy it. But I don't want to be walking across my yard with my package and be thinking, the first thing goes through my mind is, man, I sure hope the paint apps on this thing looks good. Because here lately, that's the first thing when they hand me the box is what goes through my head. I'm thinking, man, I sure hope, like when I got my new Attorney of Evil Lynn, I was like, man, I sure hope her paint apps are on point. And they were, and I was happy to see that. But that shouldn't be going through our minds, okay? Now with Montana, he didn't come with any artifact. Now we know with these cartoon figures, we're aware that they're going to come with an artifact that they were featured with in the cartoon, in that animated cartoon. And I love that inclusion as a collector. I love it, like the Wheel of Infinity and the Moon Mirror. But they didn't give him an axe. He needed a weapon. You need to throw some weapons in here with these guys. They really need it. And they kind of give figures that don't need a weapon. They get, like Leech. He don't even have a hand to hold, but he gets a gun. Okay? Where this should have clearly went to Montana. Because I've seen Montana in a cartoon where he was using a ray laser type gun in the cartoon. I don't know if he was using it, but he had it with him in the cartoon. I remember seeing that. But this guy doesn't even have hands and he gets a gun. So let's think this out a little better. Let's think it out just a little more clearly before we do things like that. And we can talk about quality. Mattel is top tier. It's supposed to be quality. Now look, this is the $3.50 dinosaur that I've got sitting here as an example. Look at the paint apps on this thing. It's absolutely amazing. Now, I don't know how much this thing costs brand new, maybe $10 at the most. But look, just look at him. There's not a mistake anywhere. The mouth looks great. Let's turn him off. The mouth, the teeth, everything is perfect. everything looks really good, and this is a very inexpensive toy. So that just goes to show that these 20-something dollar figures, like Fangman, you know, he wasn't $19.99. BBTS has him at $20.99. Okay, so I want quality as a collector. I would rather pay $25, $30 a figure and have fewer but better quality than more figures with paint slop all over them and things like that going on up here, because that's something that I don't want on my figure. But I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to touch his throat up. I'm going to get some red paint and paint in there and fix that. But, you know, me doing that, I could get it all over his face. So I'll probably just leave it as is, to be honest. It's just not worth it. Now with Grizzlor, I was able to get to his bat pretty easily and paint those bats. And it just made this Grizzlor look 110% better. So with that being done, I'll give him a 10 out of 10 now all day. Orko, he gets a 9 out of 10. The stand should have been a little taller, but I hope that's a sign of good things to come as far as the scale goes with these figures, because he is scaled absolutely perfect. I have no issues with that. Now, Evil Lynn back here, she didn't come with a cape. I've seen every Masters of the Universe cartoon. Evil Lynn has never not had a cape. She always has a cape in these cartoons, and I had to buy a cape on eBay, and it ended up making this figure about $35. So I shouldn't have had to do that. I shouldn't have had to. She should have at least come with a cape like Catcher's here, one of the rubber capes, and Catcher looks really nice. Her paint apps look beautiful. Just a really good figure. Just great. Just great. But the underscaling of the cat was a big issue. Don't include the cat at all if you're going to make it this small. It's not that I'm not appreciative. It's just that I'm being honest. So if being honest, I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. And this thing is severely underscaled. It should come up right here to her thigh area. And it's going to put this cat at 2 3/4 of an inch. Nice looking cat, and I can do without the articulation if this thing was 2 3/4 of an inch high. The Hordak, I've heard some people complain about the gray flaking on their Hordaks. This one, it hasn't happened with mine yet, but I could see how it will happen, because the paint is not being baked on these figures properly. There's a heating process that these go through. And if there's not enough paint and it's not heated and baked on properly, it's going to flake. And you can tell by this bat right here, you can bang this up and this bat is still going to be perfect. It's really nice. And that's what I tried to do with my Grizzlor, the Grizzlor bat. It don't look quite as good as this, but it looks good, and I can live with that. But I've heard a lot, you see a little paint slop of the white up here on his fin, on his head, where this side doesn't have it. But other than that, I can live with that. But I don't want the gray bones flaking and it being black, you know what I mean? Nobody does. And that's probably what you're going to, as on Manchild, that's what he had on his. So you don't want that. If you're paying the money for these figures, we're looking for something with high quality, and that's what we're looking for. And last but not least, we're going to talk about a figure that I haven't even opened yet, and that's this Terraclaw Skeletor Deluxe Origins figure. When you pull his head off, it's going to flake bad. And you're going to be able to see under the blue, the vac metal. I know mine's going to do it because the Man-Child's did, Kyle Peterson's, and Pixel Dan's did. So I'm 99% sure that mine's going to do it as well. So we'll see when I do that video. I'll probably do that video tomorrow or Tuesday when I get the chance. And we'll see. We'll see if mine does it. But I'm 99% sure that I'm not getting away with that. It's going to do it. But we love our Masters of the Universe. We love them. And we're going to buy them anyway. But as mentioned, we don't want to walk across our yard with our package and wonder if our paint apps are going to be good. There's paint slop going to be all over these $20 figures. You know, we don't. And we want the figures to hold their weapons that they come with. Like with her, let's try to get her to hold her shield one more time. Come on, girl, hold it. She won't do it. See, she's not going to do it. So, I'm going to add a little electrical tape on the back of this. A little piece of electrical tape. And that might make it wide enough to go in her hand. Or either heat her hand a little bit and kind of bend it in some. And we can work on things like that to try to fix those issues. But, you know, buying the product, we shouldn't have to, right? But I can fix things like that, but it's going to be hard for me to fix paint slop on like this Fang Man. You know, I backed out completely of trying to, in this video, I backed out. I'm not going to try to fix that throat. There's no way I'm going to do that. I'm going to cause more harm than good. So there's no way I'm going to be able to get a brush back there probably without getting it all over the blue and messing it up even more. So he's going to be left as is. But this video was not a rant. I hope y'all have a good day. This is just a intelligent discussion about some issues as collectors that we have with these figures and things that can be corrected. That's all. Y'all have a good one.